Good evening, students. Welcome to Cooking School with me, Chef Alex Cardinale. I hope you are doing great, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale. Now, I debuted this series January 30th, which is almost a month ago. And in my first episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale, I talked about the importance of food safety. I talked about mise en place and some other important kitchen topics. So, on my first episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex, I talked about the important stuff like the kind of equipment you need in your kitchen, how to stay safe in the kitchen, how to keep food safe in the kitchen, and all of that important stuff. So go check out the first episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex to learn all of those important topics. Just go to my YouTube playlist, The Legendary Alex Cardinale, and go to my Cooking School with Chef Alex playlist to find that video. So I decided that moving forward, Cooking School with Chef Alex is going to be a monthly series. So there'll be one show each month. This month, we are going to talk about the different types of cooking methods. And for the first time on Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale, I am going to incorporate recipes into the show. Tonight, towards the end of the broadcast, I am going to give you my chicken parmesan recipe as well as my chicken marsala recipe. And I'm going to tell you my tips for making the best poached eggs. So all three recipes are going to tie in to some of the cooking methods that you're going to learn about today. So today I'm going to tell you about the three different cooking methods and all the techniques you need to learn from these cooking methods. I'm going to save you guys a lot of money, and I'm going to teach you how to become great cooks. We don't have to eat out all the time or order fast food. If you're afraid to cook in the kitchen, I'm going to teach you the basics of some of the things that you would learn in culinary school, and you'll be a successful cook just like me. On top of that, I am debuting another new segment here on Cooking School with Chef Alex. It's going to be called the Cook's Dictionary, and I'm going to go over some culinary vocabulary words that are going to be very beneficial for you, and they're going to teach you a lot of things. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, do you have any questions on cooking or cooking methods? Do you have any questions on today's subject? If you do, post them in the comments and I will gladly answer any of your cooking questions. Let's get this class started right now. And I'm going to start by talking about everything you need to know about cooking. So here we go. The first thing you should know about cooking is we cook our food to remove any bacteria or parasites. That goes with meat and seafood mostly, but for vegetables and fruit and pasta and rice, we cook them to extract the nutrients out of them. Now, one of the first things you want to do when you're cooking, if you're new to the kitchen, is to read the whole recipe first. Read the recipe and follow it to the T. Don't try to change your recipe until you are quite comfortable in the kitchen. If this is your first time cooking, just follow the recipe and do everything that it says. Last month, we talked about mise en place, which means everything in order, everything in place. So when you're going to be cooking, make sure you have all your ingredients on hand and measured. So set up mise en place to make sure that you've got the stuff you need by your side so that you don't have to chop up an onion, for example, and worry about overcooking your protein because you forgot to chop up an onion. So the first thing you should know about cooking is that after you've read the recipe and you know what to do, you've got all the ingredients ready and you're ready to cook. You also need to season well and often. If you want your food to taste good, you're going to have to season it. And your seasonings can be as basic as salt and pepper or as complex as you want it. There's a lot of seasonings that are available at Walmart, grocery stores, and even the dollar store. So you can adjust your seasoning to your taste or your family's taste. But just make sure you season your food so that it will taste good. Now, if you have someone, for example, that may be elderly and they have like a low tolerance for over salted foods, you can still season your food, but limit the salt that you put on the food. If you're going to be making something with citrus fruit, like lemons or oranges, roll the citrus to get more juice out. Make sure when we're cooking that we're using the right pans. Let's say, for example, we're going to make chicken marsala and it tells us to saute it in a skillet and you end up grabbing a wok. Well, that's way too big of a pan and your pan's not going to heat up properly to saute the chicken marsala. So always use the right pan. And if you're unsure if you're using the right pan, Google is your best friend. You can just jump on Google and research the pan that the recipe calls for, and that'll make sure that you are using the right pan. When it comes to cooking protein like seafood, steak, or chicken, make sure you dry your proteins before cooking them. Get some of that excess moisture out of them because if there's moisture in your protein, it could burn. Also, you want to dry your vegetables before cooking. And really, if we're cooking meat and vegetables, in my opinion, in the way that I was trained in culinary school, there really is no reason to wash proteins or vegetables under the sink. As a matter of fact, if you take a piece of raw meat or poultry or seafood and you run cold water over it, you're spreading that bacteria to your sink. So there's no reason to wash it under running water. Same thing with vegetables. If you're going to be cooking your vegetables, you don't have to run it under running water as well. And that goes especially with mushrooms. You know, I was watching a video on YouTube today, a cooking video. I was watching a mushroom risotto cooking video, and I saw the host of the video telling people it's important to wash the mushrooms. No, it is not, because mushrooms are like sponges. They absorb everything. So what that guy did was he had the mushrooms absorbing the water before he even put it on the stove. So that mushroom risotto is going to be so liquidy, and that mushroom is going to have so much water that any flavor that that mushroom could have absorbed is very minimum. So don't wash mushrooms or other vegetables before cooking. Now, obviously, if you're going to eat a raw carrot or a raw celery or raw fruit, if you're going to eat them raw, then you can wash it. But if it's cooking, it's not necessary. Another thing to know about cooking is overcrowding your pan. And this is important when it comes to sauteing, frying, and grilling. Leave enough space for the heat to penetrate the pan so that your food cooks evenly and does not burn or steam. If you overcrowd a pan, it's not going to cook right. It's going to steam and be soggy instead of crispy. So never overcrowd your pan. A lot of people think when they overcrowd their pan, the food's going to cook a lot faster. Not true. The food will steam and it will cook a little bit quicker, but it's not going to have the desired results that you're looking for. And the last thing you should know about cooking is clean as you go. The more dishes that pile up at the end of your cooking, you're not going to look forward to doing dishes. And it's going to be a whole plethora of dishes for you to cook. As I learned from my mother, it's best to clean as you go. So, if you're making, for example, chicken parmesan, you'll clean your saute pan after you're done making the chicken. You'll clean the cutting boards, etc. So that is everything you should know about cooking. Now, here is the debut of my vocabulary segment that's going to air each month on Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale, and it is called the Cook's Dictionary. So here we go, the Cook's Dictionary. I got a plethora of vocabulary terms that I am going to give you right now. So let's get right into our vocabulary words. Up first, we have al dente, one of my favorite culinary words, and I know this one very much because I am Italian, and this is the only way that I will eat pasta. Al dente, an Italian phrase meaning to the tooth. It is used to describe pasta or other food that is cooked only until it offers slight resistance when bitten into. I love al dente pasta. I cannot stand overcooked macaroni or pasta. And when I do my pasta show in a couple months from now, I'll show you how al dente pasta looks in my first kitchen video here on Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale. So generally, when you're making pasta, al dente is about 5 to 7 minutes. And you'll drain the macaroni or the pasta so that it could adhere to whatever sauce you're putting it in. Again, we'll talk about that in depth when I do my pasta show. The next kitchen term we're going to talk about today is au gratin. Now, au gratin is a French dish that is topped with cheese or a mixture of breadcrumbs and butter. It is then heated in the oven or under the broiler until brown and crispy. So it's a French dish that generally consists of a protein or a vegetable. Examples of au gratin would be potato au gratin, broccoli au gratin, cauliflower au gratin, or there is a chef that I follow that has made egg au gratin. I forgot his name, but he's a well-respected chef in the culinary art industry. He's somewhat older, but a very, very kind gentleman. I love watching his cooking videos. If I think of his name, I'll mention it on the show. The next term we're going to talk about is going to be important, especially for our next topic here on Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale next month. Au jus. Au jus is the French phrase describing meat that is served with its own natural cooking juices. Au jus usually comes with meat roast, like a prime rib, turkey, etc. Au jus is a really delicious juice that you can make into a sauce just using the meat juices. Bain Marie, a water bath used to cook certain dishes like bread pudding, tiramisu sometimes, and other stuff like that. Baking powder, a leavener which helps a dough or batter rise or become light in texture that contains a combination of baking soda, an acid such as cream of tartar, and a moisture absorber like corn starch. Baking sheet, a flat sheet of metal, usually rectangular, used to bake cookies, biscuits, etc. It can also be used to bake protein like chicken and other stuff on it. Baking soda, bicarbonate of soda. Baking soda is used as a leavener in baking recipes. When combined with an acid like buttermilk, yogurt, or vinegar in the case of red velvet in a batter, it produces bubbles from carbon dioxide gas that allows the batter to rise as it bakes. Blackened, a cooking method in which meat or fish, usually rubbed with Cajun spices, is cooked in a very hot cast iron skillet. Blackened cod, blackened chicken, blackened scallops are a good example of that. Broth. A broth is a liquid made by cooking vegetables, poultry, meat, or fish. The flavored liquid is strained off after cooking. Braise, a cooking method on top of a stove or in the oven in which the food is browned in fat and then cooked tightly covered in a small amount of liquid at a low heat for a long time. Broil, to cook or brown food by placing it under the broiling unit in an oven. The broiling unit is usually at the top of the oven, but older ovens may have a broiler draw underneath. Recipes often call for placing the food 4 to 6 inches away from the broiling unit. Brown, to cook quickly over high heat, causing the surface of the food to turn brown while the interior stays moist. Brush, to apply a liquid with a pastry brush to the surface of food. Caramelize, to heat sugar until it liquefies and becomes a clear syrup ranging in color from golden to dark brown. What most people don't realize is everything that we cook, whether it's a piece of steak or a piece of broccoli or a piece of chicken, when it's cooking, it's caramelizing because there is sugar just about in everything that we eat. So when we cook food, it caramelizes food. Convection oven, an oven equipped with a fan that provides continuous circulation of hot air around the food. Cut in, to mix a solid cold fat like shortening or butter with dry ingredients until the mixture takes the form of small particles. It can be done with a food processor, a handheld tool called the pastry blender, a fork, or 2 knives. Dash, a very small amount of seasoning added to food. It can be somewhere between 1/16 of a teaspoon and a scant 1/8 of a teaspoon. Dice, to cut food into tiny cubes, generally 1/8 to a quarter inch. Dredge, to lightly coat a food with flour, cornmeal, or breadcrumbs before frying or baking. I often dredge a lot because I make a lot of Italian dishes, and a lot of the Italian entrees require dredging. Dust, lightly coating a food with a powdery liquid such as flour or powdered sugar. Golden or deep fried Oreos are dusted with powdered sugar as an example of a dust. Egg wash, egg yolk or egg white mixed with a small amount of water or milk. Oftentimes, it's brushed over baked goods before baking to give them gloss and color. Pinch, the amount of dry ingredients you can hold in a pinch between your thumb and forefinger. It is equal to 1/16 teaspoon. Puree, to mash a food to a smooth, thick consistency. Pumpkin puree is pumpkin that is mashed. And our last culinary term for this month is saute. To cook food quickly in a small amount of oil in a skillet or saute pan over direct heat. So those are the culinary terms for this month's edition of Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale. All right, so last month we briefly went over proper internal cooking temperatures, but since this month we're getting into the kitchen and cooking, let's go over the proper internal cooking temperatures once again so that we understand them and we avoid making any of our family members or anyone we cook for sick. So when we're cooking ground meat, whether it be veal, beef, lamb, pork, or any other red meat, we are cooking ground meats to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And ground meats can be meatballs, meatloaf, or hamburgers. And again, with beef, you can cook anything from medium rare to well done, or even rare if you prefer that. But I do recommend making pork and other red meat well done because you never know what they eat. So we're going to talk about fresh beef, veal, lamb, pork, deer, etc. These would be steaks, chops, and roast. The recommended minimum temperature is 145 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is medium rare. And I love a medium rare steak. In my opinion, a medium rare steak is the best way to enjoy steak. Medium, 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and well done is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. And leftover cooked meats, you should reheat them to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's talk about poultry now. All poultry needs to be fully cooked, and the proper internal cooking temperature for poultry is 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That includes ground chicken and turkey. That includes whole chicken, turkey, duck, and goose. That includes poultry breast, boneless breast, roast thighs, and wings. That includes casseroles, all stuffing, and reheated leftovers, and even fully cooked poultry needs to be cooked to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You cannot, under any circumstance, eat medium rare or medium poultry. It needs to be cooked well done in order to avoid salmonella. There is a trend on TikTok I saw a couple months ago, and it was in Asia. They were challenging each other to eat raw poultry or raw chicken, and it was like a teenage thing. And I was like shaking my head and in disbelief. So never ever under any circumstance eat any poultry that is less than 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Fish and shellfish, any type, should be cooked to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Pork 160 and ham 140. And eggs you can cook until the yolk and white are firm. And egg dishes such as egg-based sauces like hollandaise and custards like bread pudding and rice pudding should be cooked to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. There you have it, folks, your proper internal cooking temperatures. So probably for the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to constantly go over the proper internal cooking temperatures so that you understand them. Our last topic before we get to the main topic today is cooking safety tips. I want to once again go over some of the cooking safety tips that are very important. Never ever cook on high heat unless you are watching your food. A lot of people think when you're cooking foods high heat that it's going to reduce the time it takes for your food to cook. That is not true. The higher The higher temperature you're cooking, the more chance your food's going to burn. So use a medium-high heat if you want to use a higher heat. I have no problem using medium-high heat. The only time I use high heat is when I'm going to boil something like pasta and I don't want to wait forever. And I stand there waiting for the water to boil. A lot of house fires and burns occur when people have their heat on high and they're not watching what they're cooking. Roll up your sleeves so that they don't get caught on the stove and you burn. That has happened a lot recently. Use pot holders so you don't burn. Clean your ovens. As ovens are baking, we tend not to notice all the debris from our baking sheets and our meat roast that accumulate at the bottom of the oven. And if you don't clean it properly after several months, it can burn and cause fire in your kitchen. So make sure you're cleaning your oven, and we'll talk about that in the future. And last but not least, keep pets and children away so that they don't get hurt in the kitchen. I know when my poor Brandy, the beagle, Brandy's my adorable beagle, whenever I'm cooking and it's time to eat, she likes to race into the kitchen to see what I've made. And she's one of my taste testers. But I keep her away when I'm pulling things out of the oven so she doesn't get burned. And the same thing can be said for children because they're going to be intrigued to see what's coming out of the kitchen and what they can eat. So those are my cooking safety tips. All right, let's get to our main topic tonight, and that is about cooking methods. And right now, I want to talk about my favorite and the cooking methods that I recommend. My first favorite cooking method is baking. I love making desserts, and baking is really fun. Baking cookies seems to be a favorite pastime of mine. Baking a cake seems to be a favorite pastime of mine. Also, baking other desserts seems to be a favorite pastime of mine as well. But baking can also be baking potatoes, like baked potatoes, making macaroni and cheese, or chicken. So baking is not just all about sweet tooth. It could be for dinner foods as well. I do a lot of boiling since I make a lot of pasta. So boiling is a great cooking method. I do a lot of sauteing. I do a lot of grilling. I do a lot of roasting. Those are all my favorite and recommended cooking methods. All right, time for our main topic tonight. And now we're going to learn about the different cooking methods. There are three categories of cooking methods, and each cooking method has several variations. But first, we're going to learn about the three different cooking methods. The first cooking method is called dry heat cooking. Dry heat cooking works without the presence of any moisture, broth, or water. Instead, it relies on the circulation of hot air or contact with fat to transfer heat to foods. Temperatures of 300 degrees or hotter are used to create browning, a reaction where the amino acids and sugar in food turn brown and create a distinct aroma and flavor. The unique sense of toasted bread or seared meat are both examples of dry heat cooking at work. So the next method of cooking, after I go down to my next page here. So let's see. The next method of cooking is moist heat cooking. As the name indicates, moist heat cooking relies on the presence of liquid or steam to cook foods. This method could be used to make healthy dishes without any added fat or oil. It is also a great way to tenderize the tough fibers in certain cuts of meat like beef chuck or brisket. When cooking fibrous vegetables and legumes, moist heat cooking softens the food until it reaches the perfect tenderness. Unlike dry heat cooking methods, moist heat cooking will not produce a browned crust. And really, if you are boiling or if you're using moist heat cooking and you get a browned food, then you overcooked any moist heat cooking product if you get a brown product using moist heat. And the last cooking method is what we call combination cooking. Combination cooking utilizes both dry and moist cooking methods. Foods are cooked in liquids at low heat for an extended period of time, resulting in a fork tender product. Example, pulled pork. This technique works with the toughest cuts of meat, gradually breaking down fibers until they melt into the liquid. So the three methods of cooking are dry cooking, moist cooking, and combination cooking, which combines moist and dry together. Now let's learn about the different techniques that are implied with dry heat cooking. The first one is broiling. Broiling works by transferring extremely high heat onto food, usually directed from a radiant located above the food, which cooks on one side at a time. Browning can occur very quickly with this method, sealing juices and flavor inside and leaving a crisp exterior. Because this cooking method is fast, it is very important to use a timer or check the doneness so foods don't become burnt or overcooked. In commercial restaurant kitchens, broiling can be performed with a salamander or a broiler oven. In our home kitchens, our ovens are now equipped with a broiler, unless you have a really old stovetop. I'm talking circa 2009. Best foods for broiling. Meats. Broiling works best on thinner cuts of meat like steaks, pork chops, or hamburg patties. Tender cuts are preferred because the dry heat will quickly evaporate moisture and dry off the meat. Poultry. Use chicken or turkey cutlets, breast halves, quarters, and legs in the broiler for flavorful results. Fish. Choose thick, sturdy fish like salmon that can handle high heat and won't dry out easily. Fruits and veggies. Broiling can be used on fruits and vegetables. Try broiling peaches or grapefruit for a unique menu item. The next dry heat cooking method is grilling. Grilling is similar to broiling in that it uses radiant heat to cook foods quickly. Most commonly, grilling equipment will feature an open grate with a heat source located beneath the food. Flipping is required to cook foods on both sides, and grill marks from the hot grate or rack are desirable. Best foods for grilling include burgers. Ground hamburg meat is moist and cooks up very well on a hot grill. I've got to admit, in the spring and summer, I do admire a delicious cheeseburger that is cooked medium rare. The high heat sears the outside of the patty for the delicious charred flavor. Meats. The dry heat from grilling will quickly remove moisture from meat, so it's best to choose tender cuts or marinate the meat first. Ribeye, my favorite cut of steak. Porterhouse, also another favorite. T-bones and strip steaks have higher fat content and marbling that produces a succulent, delicious grilled steak. Poultry. Boneless cuts of chicken work best because they will grill more evenly. Whole chickens can be grilled, but spatchcocking is recommended. Fish. Salmon, tuna, and swordfish steaks are sturdy enough for the grill and won't dry out quickly. It's possible to wrap fish in foil before placing it on the grates to prevent it from falling through. Roasting. Roasting is performed inside an oven and uses indirect heat that cooks from all sides for even browning. This method of cooking works more slowly, cooks in flavors out of meat and vegetables. Roasting can be performed at very low temperatures between 200 degrees and 350 degrees Fahrenheit for tougher cuts of meat, or higher temperatures up to 450 degrees or 500 degrees Fahrenheit for more tender cuts. For example, when I make prime rib, I roast it at 500 degrees. I think it's like for 5 minutes per pound. Best foods for roasting include meats. Roasting roast cook Roasting cooks large cuts of meat slowly and evenly. Prime rib, beef tenderloin, pork butt or shoulder, and pork loin all benefit from roasting. Poultry, whole chicken or turkey can be placed in a roasting pan or on a rotisserie spit and cooked for several hours for a moist and flavorful product. Fruits and veggies. Roasting is a great way to bring out the best qualities in fruits and veggies. Grapes, cherries, and tomatoes can be roasted to intensify their flavors. Pumpkin squash, broccoli, eggplant, and cauliflower are also excellent candidates for roasting. Baking. Baking and roasting both use indirect heat to surround food and cook from all sides. The term roasting is used when we're cooking meats or vegetables, and baking is used when making bread, cookies, rolls, and cakes. Technically, these cooking methods are the same, but baking is usually performed at lower temperatures than roasting. Best foods for baking include desserts. Baking transforms wet dough or batter until a final product with a firm texture. Bread, pastries, and cakes are all baked. Pizza. As pizzas are baked in a hot oven, the dough becomes firm, a crust is formed, and the cheese topping melts. Sauteing. Sauteing is performed over a burner in a hot, shallow pan and uses a small amount of oil or fat to coat food for even browning. This method cooks food very quickly, so it is best to keep the food moving by tossing or flipping. Sauté is a French word that translates to jump. To achieve great results with sauteing, make sure the oiled pan is hot before adding any food. Don't overcrowd the pan with too many items and stir or toss frequently. Best foods for sauteing include meats. Sauteing cooks quickly, so tender meats work best. Use ground beef, tenderloin, or medallions in a saute pan. Small, uniformly sized cuts of meat brown evenly. Poultry, boneless breasts, strips, or cutlets can be sauteed to sear in flavor. Vegetables, zucchini, squash, and leafy greens can all be sauteed in olive oil or butter. Carrots, celery, and onions can also be sauteed and often make a flavorful base for other dishes. Sauteing is my most popular cooking method. I do a lot of sauteing when I make chicken francais, chicken marsala, chicken parmesan, eggplant parmesan, etc. So those were the dry cooking methods. Now we're going to talk about the different moist heat cooking. First up is poaching. Poaching is a gentle method of cooking in which foods are submerged in hot liquid between 140 degrees and 180 degrees Fahrenheit. The low heat works especially well for delicate items, and moisture and flavor are preserved without the need for fat or oil. Best foods for poaching include eggs. Poaching is a common method of cooking eggs that results in a soft, tender egg white and creamy yolk. No oil is needed, so it's more health conscious than pan frying. And I'm going to give you my tips for poaching eggs in just a second. Poultry, broth, wine, or aromatics can be used for poaching liquid, which adds flavor to boneless, skinless chicken breast. The result is tender chicken that can be cubed, sliced, or shredded and added to salads, pasta, or sandwiches. Fish. Poaching is a great way to preserve the delicate texture of light fish like tilapia, cod, and sole. A special broth called court bouillon is used to add flavor to the fish as it cooks. And last but not least, you can poach fruit. Use a sweetened liquid like honey or syrup to poach fruits like pears or apples for a unique dessert. The flavor of the fruit is deepened and the texture becomes soft and tender. Any leftover liquid can be used to make a flavored syrup to serve with the fruit. Up next, we've got simmering. Simmering is also a gentle method of cooking foods, but it uses higher temperatures than poaching, usually between 180 degrees and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature range lies below the boiling point and produces tiny bubbles. To achieve a simmer, first bring water to the boiling point and then lower the temperature. Best foods for simmering include rice. Simmering produces cooked rice with a light, fluffy texture. Using water that is boiling or too hot causes the rice to become sticky and dry. Meats. Choose tougher cuts of meat that will release fat and collagen as they simmer, like chuck roast. Soups and stocks. Because simmering releases the fat and protein from meat, it produces a rich, flavorful broth that can be used in soups or stews. Vegetables. Tough root vegetables like potatoes or carrots are cooked to the perfect texture with gentle simmering. Grains. Grains like quinoa, oats, or millet can be simmered until they reach a soft, edible texture. Hot cereal like cream of wheat is made by simmering grains until most of the water has evaporated, creating a smooth porridge. I can't pronounce it, but dried beans and walnuts are simmered to achieve a soft, edible texture. Legumes, I don't know how to pronounce it. Some types of beans, like lentils, cook quickly, while others take several hours of gentle simmering to become fully cooked. And last but not least, we have boiling. This cooking technique involves submerging food in water that has been heated to the boiling point of 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The boiling water produces large bubbles, which keeps food in motion while they cook. The expression slow boil means that the water has just started to produce large, slow moving bubbles but is not quite heated to the boiling temperature. A full boil occurs at the boiling point and results in fast moving, rolling bubbles. Steam is also released from the water as it boils. Best food for boiling includes pasta. Pasta may come to mind as one of the most commonly boiled foods. The hot water cooks the pasta quickly so that it can be removed from the water before starches break down, preventing a mushy texture. Eggs. Boiling eggs in their shell produces hard or soft boiled eggs. The texture of the yolk can range from firm to creamy, depending on the cook time. Vegetables. Tough root vegetables like potatoes and carrots will cook more quickly in boiling water, but it's recommended to test their tenderness with a fork so they don't overcook. And the last moist heat, the last moist cooking technique is steaming. In steaming, water is boiled continuously to produce a steady amount of steam. The steam surrounds food and cooks evenly while retaining moisture. Steaming can be performed in a few different ways. For high volume kitchens, a commercial steamer or combination oven is the most efficient way. Other methods of steaming include using a pot and steamer basket, using a microwave, or wrapping foods in foil so they can steam in the oven. Best foods for steaming include vegetables. Most vegetables can be steamed with great results. Sturdy vegetables like beets, carrots, broccoli, and potatoes will steam for longer than delicate foods like leafy greens. So actually, sturdy veggies like beets, carrots, and potatoes will steam longer than broccoli, but you can also steam broccoli. Fish and shellfish. For more flavorful results, broth or wine can be used instead of water. Fish stays tender, and shellfish like clam, mussel, lobster, or crabs are cooked inside their shells. Desserts. Some types of desserts are steamed rather than baked, producing a moist, silky texture. Cream brulee, flan, and panna cotta are all custards made by steaming. Tamales. Tamales are a popular food by steaming masa, a dough made of ground corn and fillings inside a corn husk packet. The steam makes the corn dough tender and moist. And finally, we got combination cooking. And combination cooking includes braising. During braising, foods are first seared in a hot oil pan, then transferred to a larger pot to cook in hot liquid. The foods are only partially submerged in simmering water, broth, or stock. Using low heat, the foods soften over an extended cook time and the liquid becomes reduced with intensified flavors. Braising is a great method for producing fork tender meats that fall off the bone. Best food for braising includes meat. Braising is most commonly used with cheaper, tougher cuts of meat because it softens and tenderizes the muscle fibers. Choose pork shoulder, chuck roast, or lamb shank. Pulled pork is made using the braising method. Vegetables. Vegetables can be braised along with meat to add more flavor, or they can be braised alone as their own dish. Root veggies like potatoes, beets, and turnips are softened during braising. The next combination cooking is stewing. The key difference between stewing and braising is that food are completely submerged in hot liquid while stewing instead of being partially submerged. Smaller cuts of meat are used in a stew, but the method of slow cooking at low heat is the same. As the stew cooks, fibrous vegetables break down, and fat and collagen from the meat melts away. The result is a thick, flavorful gravy filled with tender bites of meat and soft vegetables. So think of beef stew. Best food for stewing. Meats. Meats that are rich in collagen and fat do well in a stew pot. Avoid lean cuts and choose brisket, oxtail, or chuck roast. Vegetables. Vegetables add depth to your stew. Onions, carrots, potatoes, and celery are common choices for building a stew, but also consider parsnips, turnips, or rutabaga. And that, my students, is all of the different cooking methods. Wow, that was a long topic, but now you know all the different cooking methods. Which ones do I recommend that you use? Well, in my studies, the most popular cooking methods in the United States home kitchen is pan frying, which is a dry heat method, sauteing, which is a dry heat method, boiling, which is a moist heat method, simmering, which again is another moist heat method, and poaching. For the combination cooking, a lot of Americans make stew, and they also make roast that can also be a combination cooking, as they use braising method for that roast. All right, it's time to wrap up this show. And I'm going to wrap up this show with my 3 recipes. This is my first cooking school with Chef Alex episode that is going to feature recipes. And today's recipes are going to focus on the poaching cooking method and then the saute cooking method. I'm going to teach you how to poach the perfect egg. I love a poached egg, and I think it's essential that we learn how to make the perfect poached egg. So here we go. My tips for making the perfect poached egg. Step 1, boil water. Use a non-stick skillet and bring about 2 inches of water to a boil. Step 2, add vinegar. Next, add a little vinegar. This keeps the whites from spreading too thin. It also adds a little seasoning. Then reduce the heat to a simmer. Step 3, prep the eggs. Get small bowls ready for your eggs. This way the eggs will keep their shape and you'll be able to cook them all at the same time. Crack the eggs carefully into separate bowls and check for bits of shell. Step 4, slip the eggs into the water. Now slip the eggs into the water one at a time. Work your way around the pan clockwise so you know which eggs are done first. Tip, fresher eggs cook faster and have firmer whites. Step 5, cover the pan and use gentle heat. Cover the pan and turn off the heat. The key to poaching is a gentle heat that will give your eggs a firm white and a loose yolk. Step 6, time to serve. In just 4 minutes, the eggs will be delicate and delicious, ready to serve. Carefully scoop them out of the pan, drain them, and transfer them to serving plates. And you've got the perfect poached egg. All right, who's ready to ride off into the sunset tonight? I've got 2 recipes that are delicious, and you are guaranteed to love them. My first recipe is for Chicken Marsala, a classic Italian dish that utilizes the saute method. So for this, you're going to need chicken breast. You're going to need some mushrooms. You're going to need some onions chopped. You're going to need a bottle of Marsala wine. Use high quality Marsala wine, a Marsala wine that you would drink. And you're going to want to use 3 cups of Marsala wine. You're going to need about a cup of chicken broth. You're going to need about 4 tablespoons of butter and about a tablespoon of flour. And you're going to need some olive oil. So you're going to get a saute pan and preheat it with some olive oil. You're going to dredge your chicken in seasoned flour that's been seasoned with salt and pepper and your favorite seasoning. So by dredging, you're literally going to take, let's pretend this hand right here is my chicken. So you're going to take the chicken and you're going to dredge it in flour by going back and forth. After you dredge the chicken, you're going to place it in the preheated skillet and you're going to cook it on 2 minutes per side. So let it cook for 2 minutes each side and then remove it from the pan. Don't worry, it will not be fully cooked. You're going to finish cooking it in the sauce. Now that you removed your chicken, you're going to saute your mushrooms and onions for about 5 minutes. You're going to add the chicken back into the pan. You're going to pour the Marsala wine and you're going to let that reduce for about 2 or 3 minutes. Then you're going to add in your chicken broth and let that reduce for about 3 or 4 minutes. If it is not as thick as you want it, then you're going to take those 4 tablespoons of butter and add it to the sauce along with a tablespoon of flour. Or you could also take the 4 tablespoons of butter and combine it with the flour and then add it to the sauce. That is what I would recommend doing. But I don't think you'll need the extra flour and butter. You can serve my chicken marsala over pasta, egg noodles, or mashed potatoes. It will be a delicious Italian meal. One of these days, I'm going to show you how to make chicken marsala. This year, when I bring back my cooking series, chicken marsala is definitely on the list. And my last recipe, chicken parm. You're going to need chicken breast. You're going to need a couple of eggs. You're going to need some seasoned flour, breadcrumbs. You can use Italian-style breadcrumbs. I like Progresso. They have great breadcrumbs. You're going to need some marinara sauce. Sometimes in a pinch, I will use canned marinara sauce, but you can definitely make your own. And you're going to need some mozzarella cheese as well as provolone cheese and Parmesan cheese. You're going to dredge your chicken first in the egg wash, then into the seasoned flour, back into the egg wash, and finally into the breadcrumbs. Preheat a skillet with olive oil and saute each chicken breast for about 4 or 5 minutes. And then remove it from the pan, put it in a casserole dish, and cook it in a preheated oven of 375 for about 10 minutes. This will make sure your chicken is fully cooked. Remove from the oven, cover with your tomato or marinara sauce and your cheeses, and bake for about 10 minutes or until the cheese is melted. You could also broil the cheese until it's nice and melted. And serve your chicken parm with spaghetti or your favorite kind of pasta. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being in attendance for my second episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex Cardinale. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I hope you learned about all the different types of cooking methods there are out there. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Next month, next March, this coming March, the next cooking class is going to be on beef. I've got beef. Learn how to cook the perfect beef, think steaks, and more. Next month, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about beef. Learn how to pick the perfect steak, which steaks do I recommend, and more. So next month in March, probably March 25th, I'll do my next episode of Cooking School with Chef Alex and learn about beef. If you're new to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. I'm going to have some awesome cooking and baking videos coming your way, and other topics that I cover like wrestling, tropical fish keeping, crime, and more. So don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button. It's not going to kill you to hit that like, is it? So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. And catch my 8th-year YouTube anniversary a week from this Sunday, because you'll see me make a delicious Twix cheesecake as well as a Reese's peanut butter cake. Chef Alex saying thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your February. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next month on Cooking School with Chef Alex, where I'll teach you how to make a delicious steak. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. Legendary Alex Cardinale inviting you to a legendary celebration party that is taking place 1 week from this Sunday, on Sunday, March 6, 2022, at a special start time of 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. 1 week from Sunday, I am going to celebrate my 8th year as a YouTuber. I started this YouTube channel on March 6, 2014, and on March 6, 2022, I am going to celebrate my 8-year YouTube anniversary. I am inviting you all to be a part of the celebration, and the celebration is only going to air exclusively on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. You're not going to want to miss this celebration. It's going to be my biggest video ever and my biggest celebration of 2022. For the first time in my podcasting career and my YouTube career, I have a WWE superstar coming on my celebration. He's not only a superstar, but he's a WWE Hall of Famer, and he's a hardcore legend. That's right. There's going to be an appearance by WWE Hall of Famer and hardcore legend Mick Foley. He will be live in person on my 8-year YouTube anniversary. I've only got one thing to say about that, and that is bang, 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 bang. There are going to be some special guests on the 8-year YouTube anniversary. My good friend from Western Massachusetts, Blue View Aquatics, owner Josh Rodriguez, will be my first special guest. Josh runs an aquarium maintenance company in Western Mass, and this will be his first video podcast appearance and his first appearance on my YouTube channel. Then I've got Pro Wrestling Museum owner and WWE fan Mike Parker coming on the show. And I got two special surprise guests. Who will the surprise guest be? You're going to have to tune in to find out. There's going to be appearances by Chef Alex Cardinale. Chef Alex will bake a Twix cheesecake and a Reese's peanut butter cake. There will be an appearance by Aqua Alex Cardinale. Aqua Alex will discuss the fish species that he's kept over the last 8 years and the fish species he does not want to keep anymore. Aqua Alex will show off his new 125-gallon aquarium and more. WWE fanboy Alex Cardinale will discuss his dream WrestleMania 38 card, and Detective Alex Cardinale will break down a very horrific crime that shocked America. There are going to be plenty of surprises. So you could say that there's going to be surprises galore. What will be some of the surprises? You'll have to tune in to find out. The 8-year YouTube anniversary is going to be the biggest video of 2022, and you're not going to want to miss it. It is live 1 week from this Sunday. It is live on Sunday, March 6th, 2022 at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And it's only on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. Be sure to tune in. Live only on YouTube and my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. Which two of my 16,000 subscribers will win a $80 Texas Roadhouse gift card? Find out at the beginning of the 8-year YouTube anniversary, a week from Sunday, March 6th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Stay legendary, everybody.